plays out. But really the most important one, and again, I'm not trying to demean any, take away from any other contribution, it's really going to be about the United States. How did the United States go from neutrality to war? And you see that I put them in quotation marks, neutrality, because I don't think the United States really was ever truly neutral. So how do we know this? First of all, the United States. The United States wasn't neutral in 1914. I want to point out that Woodrow Wilson was an ideologue. An ideologue is a person who believes their ideology, their ideas are superior. He was a traditional Democratic Republican. He believed the American Republic was the greatest government ever. And he believed that it was a byproduct of our relationship with Great Britain. He believed morally the United States should be fighting for this war to protect democratic regimes. And we do identify him as an Anglophile. He loved the British. He believed that the British were the forebears of our country, and now we're better than them, but we can still now go and support them. So I want to point out the reason I have this, Woodrow Wilson was ideologically predisposed to support the Entente or Allies. Very important. Germany knew this. I like this image over here. It's Uncle Sam, but Uncle Sam looks a lot like Woodrow Wilson here. And we see this strict neutrality. He feels alone. He feels alone. He feels abandoned. He wants to get involved. Then the United States, though, I want to point out the United States respected the British blockade of Germany. So when we talk about the 14 points and we talk about freedom of seas, I don't know if that's true, because the United States greatly declined their trade with Germany. And remember, this is a war of attrition. Germany is in desperate need, right? Why? Because they were in a desperate need. Now, the U.S. didn't trade military goods to the British, but by trading medicine, by trading food, they're providing for the home front that you read about last night while ignoring the German home front. If I'm Germany, I am identifying the United States as a non-neutral, non-belligerent ally at best. I like this political cartoon up here. We see peace on earth, goodwill toward men, but what do we see? The idea about war ammunitions. We are looking for war. We're looking to make profits. Now, won't lie, this is from a socialist point of view, so I do think that's taken from a grain of salt, but that was the concept. So in the war of attrition, how can Germany view the American actions? They're going to view them, as I just said, non-neutral, non-belligerent ally. So what created the shift? In 1960, President Wilson wins the election as the Democrats pledge that, hey, Wilson kept us out of the war. The fun fact is, Woodrow Wilson never said that. By 1916, as he's running for re-election, he definitely wants to get involved in this war. He really wants to use American resources to liberate Europe from autocracy. But that's where we are. So what caused the shifting? The first thing I want you to do is talk about the German unrestricted submarine warfare. It appeared to be barbaric. Right here we see the infamous Lusitania in 1915. And in 1916, the Battle of the Sussex was attacked. But look at this political cartoon. I like this political cartoon because it really demonstrates this American view. Uncle Sam feels betrayed. It wants revenge. As the Lusitania was sinking with several Americans on it, they want revenge. This begins at this moment, as we identified as barbaric. The Central Powers are barbaric. So the paradigm is shifting from a balance of power war, England versus Germany, to a war of good versus evil. I do think that's what I want you to make sure you put in. Now, I can't overstate the importance of the Battle of Jutland. We talked about it yesterday. As the Battle of Jutland completely alienated Germany from the United States, the United States only got news through the British lens. So therefore, all of the bad things Germany did, the Americans heard about. Any of the British bad things? Nope. The United States not hear about it. So now the British propaganda begins to sway this good versus evil, the good democracies versus the bad autocracies. Germans are evil. They're Huns, barbarians. And then, as we begin to see that they were getting closer, and it's pretty clear by 1917, early 1917, the United States is just months away from declaring a war. This is when the infamous Zimmermann telegram occurs. And the infamous Zimmermann telegram, Zimmermann, the German foreign minister, tries to send a telegram to Mexico. And here you see a political cartoon here. And the whole hope is if Mexico joins the war with the Central Powers and invade the United States, it would keep the United States preoccupied. The United States couldn't engage in Europe. That was Germany's biggest fear. The United States has a lot of men, a lot of resources, so they would do this. So the promise, though, what the promise was, if Mexico did this, they would get the Mexico cession back. That means California, Texas, and these other things. Now, fortunately for the United States, unfortunate for Germany, Mexico was in the midst of their own revolution. They're ill prepared to manage any other war. And the only thing that comes out of this is the British intercept this telegram, sends it to every major newspaper, and now the United States believes Germany wants to go to war with the United States. So think about it. Unrestricted submarine warfare, barbaric. Lusitania, 1916, another one. Battle of Jutland. The United States only gets propaganda from Great Britain. Clearly, Germany's the evil one, according to them. Then we get the Zimmermann telegram, another P3 here that proves the Germans are against them. Well, I won't lie to you. I think in February 1917, Woodrow Wilson's unpacking his peace plan, the 14 points. He is chomping at the bit to get involved. He feels assaulted. He feels that this is a war that's going to make the world safe for democracy. But there was one problem. The Entente. It's not just the English and the French that are fighting. Remember, the worst autocracy in the world was Russia. Luckily for the Entente, March 16th, 1917, the March Revolution occurs, and now guess what Russia is? It's a good democracy. Early in 1917, it's the first Russian Revolution of 1917. We usher in Russia is now a democracy. So now this gives the ideological foundation for the war. Good democracy versus bad autocracy. And not shockingly, April 6, 1917, the United States Congress declares war. The paradigm is shifted. It went from neutrality for the average American to, wow, we don't like the Germans, to, oh my gosh, the Germans are attacking us, to, oh goodness gracious, it's good versus evil. And by that time, the United States was ready to demonstrate its power. So how did the United States impact the war? Well, this is where it's really important. First thing, I want you to understand the number of resources and men from the United States overwhelmed the Western Front by 1918. We're going to talk about how this ultimately really forced the Germans into submission. The Germans are going to lose all leverage and they won't be able to even negotiate. I love this political cartoon because it really illustrates the essence. Medical supplies, guns, food. We're now seeing the shipments of war. We are going to overwhelm the Western Front. Wilson shifted the war from balance of power to one of ideology. I need you to make sure you remember he's an ideologue. He wanted this war to save democracies. He wanted this war to prevent all other wars. And how's he going to do that? He unveils his ideological concept called the 14 points. He, as an intellect, he's the president of Princeton before he's president of the United States. He's really smart. Don't really like him, but that's another story. But he unveils the 14 points. These are 14 points that will make war disappear. One of the points will be freedom of seas. In other words, he wants to get rid of submarine warfare. That's what triggered us. He wants to say no. He wants all nationalities to have their own say. They wanted self-determination. He wanted a whole bunch of other things. But we'll see this. We may read this a little bit later. But I will tell you, this is important. Not only do we overwhelm the Western Front with resources, we see the United States changing the perspective. We are now going to be fighting an ideology war. The United States proved to be the determining factor in the outcome of war. There is no doubt the United States their participation in this war is going to so overwhelm that by the end of 1918, Germany is going to have to surrender unconditionally. So, how do we conclude this? The world and the war. By the end of the war, every area of the world was impacted. Look at this map. I love this map. Even Brazil. And we're going to talk about, when we talk about the peace, the Paris Peace Conference, we're going to be talking about Europe, but we also have to talk about the Middle East. We also have to talk about Asia. The peace process will drastically impact Africa and Asia. And as a result of the Great War, the United States and Japan emerged as world powers. So coming in the war, I would say it was Eurocentric. The world thought all power was driven by the Europe. Coming out of the war, the United States and Japan shifts, expands the world paradigm. And with that said, I hope that makes sense, and we will finish this up tomorrow.